You're welcome back. Still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television, where the unfortunate incidents of building collapse has cost lives first, and then we see property being lost. And some of them very, very heartbreaking, young and the old and all of that. Well, that's why we're here to discuss on how to sensitize professionals in the built environment. And the aim of that is to get everyone on board, government and its agencies, the general public. Everyone should be on board on the need for structural engineers to be engaged from the conception to the completion of projects, and also address the rate of the collapse across the country. And that's why we have with us this morning the president of Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, Engineer Peter Osarodion Igbini-Jesu, joining us this morning from our Abuja studio. Engineer, good morning, and thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Well, we've seen a spate of collapse of building in different parts of the country, and it's been on for years. And we've had talks and meetings and sanctions and threats. What's the structural engineer? You know, you're asking that the structural engineer should be part of the process from inception to the end of it. What would you be doing? How would you make a difference as a structural engineer?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, we need to understand who a structural engineer is. A structural engineer is somebody who has attained the prerequisite training to become an expert in design, construction, and supervision of structural elements in all forms of shapes, sizes, and the rest, because he had this training, he has the experience, and should be able to handle that. Then we, as a professional institution, where we now bring our members together who are structural engineers, with continuous professional development with what is happening in the field, and monitor all what our members do, so that at the end we get value for services we render. So there's always the need to engage the services of a structural engineer.
All right, so when you say there's a need, obviously that's why you're a professional, that's why we have the profession there in the first place. But what do you intend to do to stem the tide of this collapse once you're infused into the system from conception?
Thank you very much. As an institution, what we have put in place is a campaign, an advocacy campaign, in which we want to draw the attention of all the stakeholders, all the professionals in the built environment, be it private or government, on the need for them to engage the services. Because over the years, we have come to realize that the collapse of buildings we are experiencing cuts across three major areas, which are always in the sphere of the construction industry. First is the design stage. Second, the construction stage. And third and lastly, the usage stage, the end use of such a building. And we discovered that across these three segments, be it design, once it is not very well planned or articulated, involving all the professionals in it, the site you have chosen, there are certain investigations, certain data to be collected, certain parameters that will now be available for the structural engineer to give you the best design that can withstand whatever conditions are within the environment which that building is located. Then when you move to the construction stage, the structural engineer will also ensure to monitor, because there are certain specifications of the materials you are supposed to use in your construction. There are minimal basic requirements that they must satisfy. So the structural engineer will help you as the owner or the client to ensure that for every stage, all those conditions, all the necessary tests that are carried out meet standards. Then the last but the most important is the usage. Because ab initio, when you are embarking on a building, you have already told whoever are your consultants or your designers the purpose of that building. And if somewhere along the line you change the usage, which we normally call abuse of buildings or abuse of structures. For instance, now, you design a building and you said it's purely residential. Somewhere along the line, you are now changing it to become commercial. But all the load forces that come into that building, because the structural engineer who had done the design for you must have used the load parameters relating for the final use of that building. So if there is going to be any change, it's always the need to always call back on your structural engineer to be able to carry out what necessary analysis that will be done. Is it possible? Is it going to be economical to change from this to this? So you need to have experts that will guide you in all these phases. So we, as a professional institution, we have embarked on an advocacy project. So we want to bring it to the attention of everybody who are those involved in the building, in the built environment, all our professional colleagues, government agencies, and even the general public. We want to create the necessary awareness, the necessary education, the necessary campaign that there's the need for people. Find out, ask, this structure that is being constructed, does it have the seal of a structural engineer? Was it properly designed? If not, cry out. And we were also engaging the regulatory agencies across the country. Even at the federal level, we have the Council for the Regulation of the Engineering in Nigeria. And we just want to commend the leadership of that body, because their council has passed the regulation, the practice of structural engineering in this country. So we call on everybody to take advantage of the availability of structural engineers so that you get the things done rightly, right from inception, so that you don't have problem at the end of it, and you are now having issues which you on your own will not be able to contend with. So it doesn't take much. Get the services of the professionals, get the services of a structural engineer, and once you do that, I'm sure you can go to sleep, because you know your building will be handled by experts.
Yeah, well, sounds very interesting, but also sounds, because I'm trying to make it relatable with, viewers of different level, different social ladders who are watching this program. So almost every day in Nigeria, especially when you go to the developing areas, say in Lagos State, for instance, since I'm very familiar with that, Ikorodu, Ekpe area, people build every day. Now, help me to understand how these people fit into this structure that you have described.
Thank you very much. Because the owner of such properties, because even though you are submitting your development plan for approval, the government agency, be it at federal, be it at state, or be it at local government, responsible for cross-checking your proposal, there are basic things they will have to ask. And if your structures have a lot of structural elements, they will ask the involvement of the structural engineer in it. And there are certain things they will demand, the structural calculation, the analysis, to ensure that the stability of such structure has been taken care of. Other things, the soil investigation, and so on and so forth. And once the drawing, the structural engineering drawing that accompanies your proposal that goes to the approving authority, they will cross-check and see that the person who has endorsed that drawing, is he a registered structural engineer? And going further, after you get approval, you now move to site. What will now tell people, those who are involved, whoever is going to be your builder or your contractor, he also has the need for him to also check this drawing I'm going to construct for you. Has it been properly designed? Does it also have the stamp and seal of a registered structural engineer? Even down to the workforce on site, we also want to involve them, that check this thing you are, your supervisors or the people in charge of the project have asked you to handle, whatever level, are you an iron bender, are you a formwork developer, or you are a masonry work, ask, is this drawing I'm working or this building we are working on, is it really properly certified? Does it have the approving authority? Does it have the seal and stamps of the structural engineer? If not, raise alarm, shout. But coming to Lagos, which you rightly said, Lagos, because of the population and the commercial nature of it, tend to have a lot of construction activities going on. And there's the tendency, because because this is very unfortunate, for us to also bypass this process by not involving relevant agencies that are supposed to check what you want to build, because it's complementary. You have something you want to erect. It's always better for you to get an expert, and that's why they say, bring your submission. We'll help you vet it and to know whether this can stand. And let us not forget, the location of Lagos is very peculiar. The nature of the soil, close to the sea, the effect of the wind. So these are all factors that must be taken into consideration. And when you now engage the services of a structural engineer, he will be able to harness all these parameters in giving you the best design that can withstand all forces that will come into play, either during construction or when the building is being put into use.
So sounds to me like between the property owner and the structural engineer, you have the government agencies supposed to connect those two parties.
Correct.
Okay, so that's basically the responsibility of the government. Would we say that they are already,
Yes.
Because we have those agencies now, and we have people take papers to those agencies, but I don't know how much of investigation those agencies are carrying out, or if they're just a revenue generating arm for the government.
Well, their basic aim may be to generate funds, but we've always told them that because of the overwhelming demand or the need, they may not have the enough capacity to be able to handle, either in cross-checking the submissions they receive from prospective builders, or the enough manpower to monitor. Because as a regulatory agency, your work doesn't just stop in vetting the submissions you receive from developers. It goes further that you must also monitor what is also going on site. And if you don't have enough capacity, cutting across these segments of your activities, we've always advised you can outsource. You can engage professionals. Luckily, there are a lot of professional bodies, you understand, so many of them, and ours is one, because ours is related to structural engineering practice. You can engage at the institution, and we can also assist, because the Lagos state which you refer to, and it's because people think they will be delayed in getting the necessary approval for them to commence work. You see them bypassing a lot of processes. You understand? But what we are saying is that if they are overwhelmed and they don't have enough, outsource the personnel, and so that we can give this country the best and really stem this tide of building collapse.
All right, we sure hope to do that because it affects everyone. President, Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers, Engineer Peter Igbeni-Jesu. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and we do wish you the best in your campaign at the end of the day.
Thank you very much.